Welcome to Yoga and Journal, the second class in this series. Today we'll be focusing on the hips and the hands. We'll get right into it in child's pose. So coming onto the knees, sitting the bum back to the heels, stretching the arms to the top of the mat, and then bowing the third eye down to the earth. Taking this opportunity to check in with yourself. Forgetting everything it took to make it to your mat today and everything on the to-do list afterwards, and just being present in this moment. Observing the breath in its natural state. Scanning through the physical body and acknowledging anything you're carrying with you today. And checking in with your emotional body. Acknowledging and labeling any emotions you're feeling right now. And starting to lengthen the inhales and the exhales. Taking a big inhale through the nose. Big sigh through the mouth. On your next inhale, we'll rise out. We'll bring our hands under our shoulders for a moment so that we can widen the knees, keeping the feet together. And then we'll sit back into child's pose with wide knees for just a couple more breaths. This will allow you to sink your heart a little bit deeper and send the breath into the back and front of the heart space. Check in with your hips as they are today, maybe moving kind of side to start. And then we're going to find a little flow to begin warming up into the hips. Take the left hand below the face. Inhale the right arm up to the sky, and you'll have a little tilt through the pelvis here. We'll exhale and take the right arm through, threading the needle, and the opposite hip will lower. Inhale to rise, and exhale to thread the needle. Now, this is sort of upper body movement, but we're really connecting to our hips here. Starting to warm up into the hip socket. And just bring our awareness to how the hips are feeling today. 2 more flows with your own breath, taking the full inhale to rise and the full exhale to sink in. Last time, inhale and exhale. Inhale back up, and then we'll take the right hand below the face, finding the flow on the other side. Inhale the left arm up, and any cracking or popping through the hips is sometimes normal as we recenter our femur in that hip socket with this flow. Inhale, rise. Exhale, sinking down. 2 more flows. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Inhale to come out And we're gonna make our way on to our bums, and we're going to bring one shin in front of the other for easy pose. Now we're not quite warm yet, so we're just going to find a hold here as an opportunity to check in with the outside of the hips. Option to keep a block nearby to help us ground through that upper body. So finding a grounding position with the sits bones, removing the flesh. We'll inhale to lengthen out of that low back. Let our hands help us hinge forward from the base of the spine, and then the hands can walk forward for a forward fold. Now this is where the block will be handy. You can bring the third eye down so the upper body is fully supported, and this will allow the hips to fully relax. We'll be here for about 10 breaths, and we'll focus on lengthening those inhales and exhales through the nose. Now, whatever shin is in front, you might feel more of a stretch on the outside of that hip. But taking this time to maybe shut down the eyes and look inward and connect with the hips. What's interesting about the hands is a lot of the time tension can creep into different areas that we're not directly focusing on. So really keeping those hands relaxed and soft, no clenching, and using those long inhales and exhales to expand into any tight areas of the body. 5 more breaths here. On your next inhale, you can slowly begin to lift the head and walk the hands back. Take a moment to just feel the effects of that pose. And when you're ready, switching out which shin is in front. Again, press the hands beside the hips to lengthen out of that low back and hinge forward from the base of the spine, gently walking the hands forward. And then finding grounding for the third eye, keeping the hands soft and relaxed. Tuning into the breath and connecting with the hip area. Noticing any tension in any area of the body that it might be showing up. And with each exhale, trying to soften and let go of that tension. Letting the earth support you, letting your block support you, so you can just surrender the weight of the body to the pose. Five more breaths, really lengthening those inhales and exhales, and breathing in and out through the nose. you're ready, you can begin to lift the head, walk the hands back. You can move the block aside for now. And then we will just find downward dog for just a moment so that we can walk the feet up to the hands and unroll to the top of our mat, preparing for our sun salutations to create some heat in the body. Before we begin, we're going to bring hands to heart center, close the eyes, and choose our intention for practice today. Listening to our inner guide and whatever comes up for us today. When you've heard your heartfelt intention for practice, solidify it with 3 breaths. Gently flutter the eyes open. And we're going to flow through a really fun variation of sun salutations that will warm us up into the hips. So we'll start with the hands by the side in mountain pose. Inhale. Exhale all your air. Inhale, let the arms reach wide and high. Hands touch above the head. And then exhale, swan dive forward, leading with the heart, keeping the knees soft, hinging from the hips. Inhale to lift halfway. Exhale, we'll plant the hands. We'll step back with the left foot, finding a low lunge with the right leg forward. Holding here for 3 breaths. Breathing into the front of the left hip. Keeping the upper body soft and relaxed. And then pressing into the hands, drawing that right leg back into tabletop, flowing through cat and cow. Press into the hands, exhale, rounding out through the back. Inhale, tilt the pelvis forward, tailbone up and back, and feel as though you're dragging the heart through the hands as you lift the head. Exhale, rounding out, posterior pelvic tilt. Inhale, sink the heart, anterior pelvic tilt. Although this feels great through the spine, shoulders, and heart space, we're really focusing on that hip area here. So just keeping the attention on the hips as you flow. Letting your breath be the guide for your speed. Exhale to round. Inhale, sink. And then finding a neutral table, we'll shift right into downward dog, holding for 5 breaths. This is the first downward dog hold of the day. So feeling free to bend through the knees, just to start to loosen up through the legs, pressing into the knuckles of the hand to alleviate pressure on the wrist, and keeping the fingers spread wide like rays of the sun. 3 more breaths. Maybe finding stillness for the last couple. And on your next exhale, gazing forward, stepping the left foot between the hands, dropping into a low lunge with the left leg forward, holding here for 3 breaths. Keeping the upper body soft and relaxed. Breathing into the front of the right hip. One more breath. And then stepping the right foot to meet the left. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms sweep wide, reach up. Exhale, hands to heart. 3 breaths. Connecting with your intention for practice and evening out the inhales and exhales. Inhale. Exhale all your air. Inhale, arms sweep wide. Hands touch overhead. Exhale, swan dive, leading with the heart, arms sweep wide, folding down. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, plant the hands, this time stepping back with the right leg, left leg low lunge for 3 breaths, breathing into the hips. Keeping the shoulders down, gaze is just to the top of the mat, so the neck is neutral. Knee is stacked over the ankle. Inhale. Exhale, begin shifting into tabletop and right into your cat and cow flow. Rounding through the spine, tilting the pelvis backward, then sinking the heart, tilting the pelvis forward. 5 times total, flowing with your own breath, exhaling to round, inhaling to sink the heart. Two more. Staying connected with the hips. And then finding your neutral table and shifting right into downward dog for 5 breaths. Feeling free to find any emotion that feels well. And then once you're feeling stable and in a comfortable position, finding some stillness. Pressing into the knuckles of the hands, letting the heels energetically reach towards the earth. Hips reach toward the sky. Two more breaths here. And then on your next inhale, gazing forward, stepping the right foot between the hands, lowering the back knee down, low lunge for 3 breaths, keeping those shoulders softly away from the ears. Breathing into the left hip flexor. And the neck is neutral, so we're not looking straight ahead. We're gazing just to the top of the mat here. Inhale. Exhale, step the left foot to meet the right. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms sweep wide, touching overhead. And exhale, hands to heart. 3 breaths. Just noticing the heat we're slowly building in our body. Evening out the inhales and exhales. Inhale. Exhale, we'll do that one more time each side. Inhale, arms sweep wide. Exhale, hinging from the hip. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold, stepping back with the left foot. Right leg low lunge for 3 breaths, breathing into the hip. keeping the upper body as relaxed as we can here. Inhale. Exhale, begin to shift into tabletop and make your way into your cat and cow flows. Moving with your own breath, staying connected with the body. And being subtly aware if any emotions are being moved through you. 2 more times. And then meeting in downward dog for 5 breaths. Now, because we are playing into our hips area, feel free to adjust your stance to see if that changes the pose for you, whether it feels more meaningful, feet closer together, or it feels spacious and connected to have your feet further apart. This is your practice and your body. 3 more breaths. You found your downward dog, aiming for stillness of the body. After your next exhale, gazing forward, stepping the left foot forward, left leg low lunge, 3 breaths here. As we flow through, you might notice you're sinking a little deeper into that hip flexor, just acknowledging any changes as we move. One more breath. And then stepping the back foot to meet the front. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms reach wide and high. Exhale, hands to heart. 3 breaths here. Let's inhale together. Exhale all our air. And last time, flowing like this. Inhale, arms sweep wide and high. Exhale, swan diving forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold, step the right leg back. Left leg low lunge for 3 breaths. Shifting into table, flowing through your cat and cow with your breath, rounding out through the back, sinking the heart, staying connected to our hips. And our hands here are in Hasta Bandha, rooted into the earth. 2 more times. And then finding your downward dog, 5 breaths. Taking the time to set up your downward dog so we feel length through the spine, length through the backs of the legs. Two more breaths here. On your next exhale, gazing forward, right foot steps between the hands, lower the left knee down for right leg low lunge, 3 breaths. Working deeper and deeper into our hips, mindfully, physically, energetically. After your next exhale, stepping the left foot to meet the right. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms sweep wide. Exhale, hands to heart. 3 breaths. Now we're going to do one more flow just to make our way to pigeon pose. So we'll inhale, sink the bum, reach it back toward the back of your mat, arms stretch up for chair pose just for a moment. Exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold, plant the hands, step back plank. Option to lower the knees here. So we lower either halfway or all the way chaturanga. Inhale, upward dog or cobra. Exhale into your downward dog. Bring the feet together. Inhale, the right leg high, keeping the hips squared. And then draw the right knee towards the right wrist, kicking right ankle towards the left wrist, and shifting back to set up for your pigeon pose. Now in pigeon, we want our hips to feel squared and our knee to feel safe. If you'd like to move deeper, we can bring the ankle to parallel with the knee. And if we want to ease back a little, you can move the heel closer to the pelvis. Having your blocks nearby is going to be helpful to ground into the third eye. So let's start by lengthening out of that low back, making sure we've set up this pose with integrity, and then slowly folding forward. Coming onto the forearms, and you have the option to use the block at any height, or we can bring the hands or fists stacked to rest the third eye down, or maybe it even comes down to the mat. Whatever variation feels like the most comfortable seat for yourself, so that you're experiencing steadiness and sweetness. And then we're going to hold here for about 2 minutes, because this pigeon pose works a very large muscle that takes a bit of time to relax and release. So here we want the breath to be soft, and we want to close our eyes and tune into the body. Acknowledging any sensations that are coming up. Acknowledging any emotions that feel safe enough to come up. And using the breath to keep the mind calm, to let the nervous system know it's safe to let go. Each inhale, filling up the body with air, and each exhale, surrendering to the pose a little bit more. Let's take 5 more breaths here. Feeling free to exhale through the mouth with a sigh. And after that 5th exhale, you can begin to lift the head and walk the hands back to the hips. We'll take a breath here. And then we'll press into the hands, coming onto the ball of the back foot. We'll shift back into downward dog for a moment. Option to come into child's pose as well, just to feel the effects of pigeon on that right side hip. And then meeting back together in downward dog. Feet come together. Inhale the left leg high, keeping the hips square. And then drawing the left knee towards left wrist, left ankle towards right wrist, setting up for pigeon on the other side. Again, there should be no pain or pinching in the knee. If there is, you do have the option to find recline pigeon. And then finding squared hips, we'll bring the hands to the waist. Inhale to lengthen. And exhale, beginning to fold forward over those legs. Any option with the blocks or without to ground through that third eye just supports the upper body so that we can focus on the hips. And then we'll be here for a couple minutes to really allow the effects of this pose to come through and any emotions that might be hiding out, feeling stuck in the hips, to feel safe enough to come to the surface. Now notice if the tension is hiding out somewhere like your hands or your shoulders or your neck. And with each exhale, it's an opportunity to let go of that tension. Making any micro adjustments you need, but aiming to find some stillness so that we can listen to the body. Relaxing the jaw and the face as well. Let's take 5 more breaths, feeling free to exhale through the mouth with a sigh. And slowly rising out of your pose. You can walk the hands back to the hips. We'll take a breath here. And then planting the hands, we'll plant onto the ball of the back foot, tuck the leg back in, and then we'll just rest in a wide leg child's pose for 5 breaths. Just to recenter, realign, and take a moment for introspection. Reminding yourself of your intention for practice today. And then on your next inhale, you can shift into downward dog. And slowly walk the feet to meet the hands. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, sweep the hands, reach the hips back for chair pose. Press into the feet. hands return to heart center. All right, we're gonna find a few standing poses that will focus on expansion through the hips and stability as well. We're going to want our block, at least one nearby. So we'll start off by stepping back with the right foot, finding heel to arch alignment, warrior two arms and legs. We'll just take 3 breaths here, focusing on grounding through the earth, strengthening through the legs, opening through the hips. All of the above. And then when we're ready, we'll just shift into side angle, taking the forearm above the knee, sweeping the right arm overhead for side angle, just for 3 breaths, beginning to lengthen out both sides of the body. Reach the arm on the diagonal, but keep the shoulder away from the ear. And then from here, we're going to grab that block and prepare for half moon. So we'll shorten the back leg stance. We'll grab our block and we'll begin to float the right leg into the air, stacking the hips, keeping the gaze at the floor to start. And as we find our stability, inhaling the right arm up. For a balance challenge, you can bring the gaze to the top hand. Otherwise, we're just holding here for about 3 to 5 breaths. The grounded leg is softly bent. The shoulders squeeze together on the back. And allow those tiny fluctuations to happen as the stabilizer muscles in the legs, feet, hips work to balance our body. When you're ready, you can let that top leg float down and help our body come back up to standing. Turning both toes forward, setting up for an expanded forward fold. Inhale to lengthen the spine. Exhale to hinge forward. Hips shift back slightly. And then we'll take our hands to line up fingertips with toe tips. Option to use the block here just to raise the earth to meet us. And then bending the elbows through the legs, let the crown of the head fold forward and release to the earth. 3 breaths here. Let those shoulders lift away from the ears. And then inhale, hands come to the waist, press into the feet, slowly rise to the top. And then setting up for warrior two on the other side, right toes point to the back of the mat. Nice wide stance with a heel to arch alignment. Inhale, arms to shoulder height. Stacking that right knee over the left ankle, gazing over the front hand. 3 breaths here. Opening through those hips. And then bending through the front forearm. It releases just above the knee. Sweep the left arm overhead. Bicep in line with the ears. Inhale to lengthen both sides of the body. And then grabbing that block with the left hand, you can begin to shorten the back leg stance, bringing the right arm down to your block, any height, and that left leg begins to float. Stacking left hip over right hip, shoulder over shoulder, finding a gaze point on the earth. And for a balance challenge, you can bring your gaze up to that top hand as we float here in half moon. Keeping the left leg active, pull the toes toward your face and feel those tiny fluctuations in the feet, legs, and hips as we work to stabilize and balance our body. 2 more breaths. And that top leg can lower down to help our body lift up. And then we'll point both toes forward for another wide leg forward fold. This time, we'll start by lengthening out the spine, hands at the hips, hinging forward. And we'll take the peace fingers around the big toes again, bending the elbows wide, letting the crown of the head release to the earth, lifting the shoulders away from the earth. Holding here for 5 breaths. Keeping the hips squared here, knees softly bent. And then inhale the hands to the hips and slowly unroll to the top. Stepping both feet to the top of the mat, we'll set up for one more balance posture. We're going to find a chair pose with an external hip rotation. So we'll start by taking that right leg up just above the knee. Knee comes wide. And then we'll start to sit the hips back for a chair pose. Option is to keep the hands at the hips, or we can lift the arms up to find extension. Biceps line up with the ears. Sitting those hips back, this is a active flexibility pose. We're working through that left leg and actively opening through that right leg. 3 more breaths here. And then slowly extending that left leg, you can release the right leg. We'll find a gentle forward fold here. Interlocking arms around the elbows, letting the head hang. Knees nice and bent. Inhale to slowly roll back up. And then setting up on the other side, we'll take the left ankle just above the right knee, setting that up, and then sitting the hips back, keeping the hips as squared as we can, finding that gaze point for balance, and maybe the arms stretch up to the ears, pulling belly button to spine for a seated chair pose. 3 breaths here. And slowly inhale to rise up. Feet come hip width apart, and we'll find one more flow to make it down to our mat. Inhale, arms reach wide. Exhale, hinge from the waist. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold, plant the hands, step back plank. Option to lower from plank or with the knees down, lowering halfway or all the way. Inhale, upward dog or cobra. Exhale, downward dog. Let's take 2 breaths here. And then hopping or stepping to seated. From here, we're going to find Baddha Konasana. So we'll bring the soles of the feet together, and we'll just gently find some circles through the upper body, right from the base of the spine, just warming up into those hips again. Maybe closing the eyes so that we can see inward and letting that circle gradually grow. When you're ready, we'll slowly change directions, starting slow, having that rotation come right from the base of the spine, and gradually growing. Getting a little larger in that circle. And then we'll find a neutral spine. So now we're going to find a deep hip opening pose. So we're going to, from this position, cross our legs on top of each other so that the knees are stacking and the ankles are coming out to the edges of our mat. Feet are flexed here, and you'll already notice, even with that spine upright, that you're feeling a deep, deep stretch through the outside of the hips. So you have the option to just stay here if you're feeling it, or you can begin to walk those hands forward and bow over those knees, listening to what your body needs. We don't need to force or strive or strain. Just being in this pose, feeling that sensation through the outside of the hips is what we would like. You can bring your hands to the feet if that feels good. And then we'll just hold here for 10 breaths. Each inhale really lengthening through the spine, and each exhale trying to let go of any tension. Keeping the hands relaxed. If you need, you can roll the wrists and shake out the hands if the tension is making its way there. Five more breaths, lengthening out those inhales and exhales through the nose. After that last exhale, you can slowly begin to make your way out of the pose. Let your hands help your legs make its way out. And we'll bring our heels as wide as our mat, flexing our feet, and just slowly lower the knees from side to side, just to counter pose. And recenter the legs in the hip joint. As many times as you need. And then when you're ready, we'll find that pose on the opposite side. So opposite leg on top, knees are stacking, heels come to the outside of your mat, and there's sort of a line from ankle to ankle. And this side might feel completely different than the other side, just setting it up so we're grounded through the hips, and then either staying upright or maybe you'd like to move deeper and lower the body to fold over the legs with the hands forward. Whatever feels best through those hips, knees. And then settling in for 10 long inhales and exhales through the nose. Each inhale, we lengthen through the spine. And each exhale, we try to let go of any holding or tension that we can. Acknowledging any sensations coming up or emotions moving through us. Five more breaths. After that fifth exhale, you can inhale to slowly make your way out, helping your legs return back through center mindfully, and then just planting the heels, finding that flow, those windshield wipers side to side, just to recenter and reset. So we're going to make our way into another hip opening pose that will have some hip external rotation and internal rotation. We're going to find this 90-90 shape, and we'll keep our block nearby so that we can find grounding through that third eye. Now, it is perfectly wonderful to stay right here if you're experiencing a nice stretch through the hips. And you have the option two options here, to either fold forward over that leg if that feels meaningful to your body, or you can also take opposite hand to that front knee and the other hand behind you. Now that fold forward will kind of deepen the stretch through the front leg, and this twist will deepen that stretch through the side leg. So whatever feels best today, feel free to switch it up each time you practice. And then we'll settle in for another 7 breaths. Each exhale is an opportunity to let go of whatever's coming up for you. Two more breaths. And then slowly making your way out, back up to center. And we'll bring that left leg around. Take a moment just to wrap your arms around your legs and just observe how those hips are feeling so far in your practice. And to remind yourself of your intention for practice today. And when you're ready, you can set it up on the other side. So the left shin is forward and parallel with the top of the mat. Right leg comes out to the side for that 90-90 shape. And we'll start off just with the body upright and checking in with the outside of that left hip and the inside of that right hip. Now, whatever option you found on the other side, I recommend keeping balance and doing that option on this side, but use your intuition here. So either folding forward to deepen that stretch through the outside of the left hip, or twisting opposite hand to that front knee to deepen the stretch in the inside of that right hip. And then settling in for 7 breaths. Each exhale is the opportunity to let go of whatever is surfacing for you, if it's ready to be let go. Keeping the inhales and exhales as long as feels good. Two more breaths. And slowly, you can let your legs return back to the mat, and we'll plant our feet on the mat. We're going to make our way down to our backs, and we'll want to bring a block with us. So move the hips towards the heels, palms to the sky, and unroll one vertebra at a time. Using the core here, slower than you would like. Coming down onto our backs. We're gonna find those windshield wipers one more time. So legs are in about a 90-degree shape, heels are planted on the edges of our mat, and we're just gonna bring the arms out to a T shape as we lower the knees all the way down to one side and over to the other. Inhale through center, exhale to one side. Just to reset and realign. And then we'll find center, planting our feet so that our fingertips can touch our heels. And we're going to bring our block with us for a supported bridge. Before we get to the supported bridge, we're just gonna reset by pressing into the feet, lifting the hips into a regular bridge, squeezing shoulder blades together on the back, press the palms into the mat, and activate through those glutes, little squeeze of the knees toward each other, and press into the feet, holding for 3 more breaths. And then slowly unroll one vertebra at a time. And then for this next bridge, I'll just show you before you make your way there. You'll lift your hips the same, and then at medium height, you'll take the block just above the tailbone so that you can completely bear down all your weight on the block. And then we'll let the palms face the sky here. So making your way into your supported bridge. Should feel very stable and comfortable. Feel free to make minor adjustments until you feel supported. And then the option is to keep the feet grounded, or you can extend both the legs for a nice opening through the front of the hips. And we'll hold here for about 4 or 5 breaths. And slowly, after your breaths, you can inhale to plant those feet down if they were extended, lift the hips up, and remove the block, and then hug both knees into your chest. Rocking side to side to give that low back a little massage. And then we'll take the right ankle above the left knee, and we'll thread the needle either binding behind the thigh or around the shin. And we'll hold here for 5 breaths, breathing into the outside of that right hip. Maybe closing the eyes to look inward. Now you can stay here, or you have the option to shift into a twist variation. You're going to take the flexed foot and lower it all the way down to the earth. And I like to take my opposite hand to the ankle to support this pose. Other hand can come to the hip for a grounding feeling, or it can open up to the side. Gaze can remain to the sky, or you can turn opposite direction to gaze over the extended hand. 5 breaths. On your next inhale, slowly returning the head and legs to center, hugging the knees in for a moment, and then switching out to the other side. Left ankle above the right knee, binding behind the thigh or around the shin. Gentle, energetic pull of that right knee towards the right shoulder and holding for 5 breaths. After 5 breaths, you have the option to stay here or to let that left foot fall towards the earth for a twist variation. Again, I like to take that right hand to the ankle for a bit of support. And then you can extend the left hand to the side, or it can come to the hip for a grounding sensation. Option to keep the gaze to the sky, or you can turn it away from the legs over that left shoulder. And then holding for another 5 breaths. After your 5 breaths, slowly letting the head and legs return to center, giving yourself a little hug. Then we'll find a quick waterfall inversion, extending the legs up to the sky. Let's roll out those ankles, crack out those feet, and then let the blood and lymph drain out of our lower extremities for about 5 breaths. Noticing that waterfall sensation. And finding that perfect kind of floating position where we're not having to actively work. The legs just stack on top of each other. After 5 breaths, feel free to hold longer if you'd like. We'll lower those legs down and set up for our Shavasana, extending the legs to the corners of our mat, letting the toes fall open, grounding through the hips. Arms come to the sides at about a 45-degree angle, palms to the sky. Shoulder blades together on the back. Slight tuck of the chin to signal the body for rest. And then let go of today's practice. Let go of any holding of the breath. Begin to relax the muscles in the face, the brow, the cheeks. Relax the jaw and let the tongue fall from the top of the mouth. Feel your body getting heavy. Feel yourself drifting off into that quiet white space. feeling free to stay here as long as you would like. Otherwise, starting to bring your awareness back to this time and place. Deepening the breath and inviting small movements to the fingers and toes. Circling into the wrists and ankles. When you're ready, stretching overhead with the arms, lengthening long from fingertip to toe tip. Big breath in, fully exhale, and then hug one and both knees into your chest, giving yourself a tight embrace, rocking side to side. When you're ready, you can fall to one side using your arm as a pillow and pausing there for a moment. When you're ready, you can press yourself up to a comfortable seated position. Bringing your hands to heart and bowing towards yourself. Thanking yourself for practicing today. Reminding yourself of your intention for your practice. And just bowing into your own inner light, your inner wisdom, your inner guide. Thank you for practicing with me today, for showing up for yourself. Namaste.